Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for this wonderful panel and this wonderful discussion to talk about navigating the new world. We are just going to give it a few more minutes. I see a lot of people are still joining and joining the audio, so just bear with us for a couple of minutes before we kick off and get started. I think we are getting there. Okay, so while the final few people start to join in, I thought I'd take a moment just to introduce the discussion today. So as I mentioned, it's navigating the new world. This is new territory. This is unprecedented times that we all find ourselves in. But one of the unique parts about the recruitment industry is that we very much band together in times like this where everyone needs to leverage the community and really to leverage one another. And there's been a phrase that's been going around all in this together. And I don't think that's ever more apt than it is today. We're very lucky that we've got an executive's perspective. We've got two people joining us, Bev from Harvey Nash and James from Air Swift. We'll get to the introductions in a little bit. But really is an opportunity for us to take this as an opportunity to ask questions, actually hear other people's practical advice and see if we can take this community spirit a little bit further and hopefully into several other of these sessions as we move throughout the next couple of weeks and hopefully not a couple of months, but as time starts to get back to normality to a certain degree. Just want to kick straight off with our panelists. I'm going to give you both a moment just to introduce yourself. My name is Sean Wees. I'm the Regional Vice President of our enterprise business. Been involved for around 8 years now, and prior to that I was at Broadbean for 5 years. So always on the supplier side, but a unique perspective, the challenges and the opportunities that our business leaders face. Bev, I'd like to hand over to you to introduce yourself, if you don't mind.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Bev White. I joined Harvey Nash as the Group CEO on the 3rd of February. So it's been a very interesting few months and I love working in the organisation. I spent more than half my career as a technologist. So to work with a brand that is very much focused on tech recruitment and solutions is absolutely brilliant. Thank you. James.
Thanks.
So I'm probably the opposite of Bev. I've been at Air Swift almost 20 years this July. And I'm currently, my role at the moment is Chief Operations Director at Air Swift. So I look after all of the centralised support functions, our regions around the world, including IT, marketing, learning and development, HR, etc. So yes, challenging times and happy to, looking forward to discuss how we've approached it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I really appreciate everyone that submitted their questions as part of registration, but equally took a lot of the challenges and the discussion topics that our business leaders that we've interacted with and our clients have been talking about as well. We've kind of bubbled them up into some major themes here. We're going to kick off by talking about managing change and culture in this environment. Everyone's new to remote working, managing teams in that regard as well. So interested to hear the panel's thoughts and feedback on that. How to lead in a crisis. And I think we talked about this on one of the prep calls earlier on with Bev. Been in the company for such a short space of time and walked straight into this environment, which is very unique and something I'm keen to hear about as well. And moving to opportunities. So with every disruption, with every change, with every kind of move and shift within the market, that does provide itself opportunities, and in particular to the recruitment market, especially where you have a diversified business or whether you're very niche as well. So keen to hear the panel's thoughts around, what can we look to in terms of being prepared for the snapback, but equally what opportunities we can see today. And then lastly, this really came up from one of our prep sessions as well, is we've got a lot of tenure on this panel, myself, even on the supplier side, and we want to talk about the similarities and differences now with what we're experiencing versus previous recessions or bear markets as well. Depends on how optimistic you want to be in terms of that word itself. And then lastly, we're going to get to the attendees' questions as well. Now, for all of you that have been to a panel, been to one of these discussions, you know for a fact that our likelihood of getting through everything is minimal. What we will say, though, is that please add questions within the chat box on the webinar. Afterwards, there will be a survey as well coming out asking for more feedback, more questions, and the types of topics that you would like to hear moving forward. This is going to be the first of a series. Hopefully, Bev and James, if we don't scare them too much, would like to join us back to the discussion, but hopefully we can cover as much as possible today. So with that, I'm going to get rid of the screen for now, so you can see our lovely faces even more so, and we'll kick off. So talking about the main theme around managing change and culture, one of the first questions I wanted to put on the table is, how are your businesses adapting to the environment? What have you seen in terms of the adaptation so far? And Bev, would you mind just giving us a brief insight?
Sure. So we'd moved over to Office 365 probably towards the tail end of last year, and I'm so grateful we'd done that, because as this terrible virus started to emerge around the world, we were sending teams home to test everything was working and capacity and so on. So we had an opportunity to kind of get that up and running, but I don't think anything quite prepares no matter how much flexibility you have in the way that you operate your business for home working, until everybody's actually at home, working in their kid's bedroom or in the kitchen or wherever they're working from. You can't really tell how your business is going to feel. So there's a whole variety of things. So the technology worked, which was brilliant. So we spend our world now in Teams, always video on, because we want to we're a personal business, person to person, so that's important. And then making sure that we kind of put some structure around our days, because it'd be very easy to kind of get away from that. So recommendations about how, not rigidly, but some recommendations. And then we put a lot of social elements into it. So we found we didn't have to do it, people did set up kind of yoga sessions and exercise classes and running classes, and suddenly this emerged. And then we launched something we call International, INTERNAS, International News, for our Nash Tech business. But we launched that across the entire business in our first few days, and that's got social elements, it's got new wins, it's got kind of wise words from people around the world, and all of those things have helped draw us tightly together. And I think we can't overestimate the amount of communication we found it's really important to do. You really reach out and ask people if they're okay outside of the normal business, how's it going, but personally, how are you?
Yeah, no, we're definitely seeing elements of that as well. It's crazy the evolution of some of the applications like House Party, but also some of the day-to-day applications you had in your business like Teams, GoToMeeting, and Zoom as well become so prevalent in terms of interaction and communication. James, how about yourself?
Very, very similar. We're now patting ourselves on the back a little bit. We moved into a pure cloud-based strategy about 2 years ago. So glad we did that. Can't recommend it thoroughly enough to anybody out there. Teams is a godsend, as Bev said, and we've done very similar things. As a management team, we made a decision very early on when we saw it was going to be everyone in the world is going to be moving to working from home. One, to over communicate, and two, to lead by example. So as an executive team now, we are taking turns once a week to put a video out there on a topic, whatever it may be that helps the business. We've done one on how can you create value in this world, how can you sell on video, etc., etc. So we're all taking turns as a management team now, recording ourselves like this, putting out to the business using Teams and sharing our experiences, but moreover leading by example about getting everyone to use video, which I think is critical. And similar, that spiraled off into some wonderful directions. Folks are creating virtual pubs and quiz nights and all that great stuff. So yeah, I think my message is over communicate right now. You can't do enough communication right now.
So when we think about people's health and well-being, as we're getting towards Easter, obviously all the children are off school, and typically this is when you would start preparing for holidays or having plans in the summer. How are you managing holiday PTO, etc.? James, want to kick that off?
We're encouraging people to continue to take their holiday as if they would. Obviously in the UK and some other countries, you can have there's the rollover, but we are certainly coming along the angle of we all need sanity. We all need to keep sane. We need to spend time with our families. And yes, I think I'm learning working from home is strange. I've done it before and from a day here and a day there, but 3 weeks into this now, I'm taking a week off next week to spend purely time with the kids, because you are locked away for a lot of the time and they don't see you. So we really try and encourage just because we're locked at home at the moment, take your time, log off, close the laptop, and spend time with your family. You need it as much as the business needs to spread its holiday allowances throughout the year. So that's something we're proactively again communicating at the moment.
Yeah,
Bev, how about
very
you?
similarly. Very similarly. We're encouraging people to take their holiday and to get a bit of a break, even if they can't get out of their home or their garden. To at least, as James said, take time away from the team's environment, which is pretty intensive. I think the risk is, it's a short commute to work, right? So, the days can be very long and full on. And so making sure you take breaks, encouraging our people, ourselves actually, leading by example to James's point, to do that, and not sending, requests to people kind of odd hours of the day just because it suits you, because now, people are very kind of intensely looking out for news.
Yeah, and I think the mental health and the health and well-being is a topic I'd like to stay on for a moment, if you don't mind. So, two questions, and we can answer them in any way. So, first and foremost, what sort of strategies do you have in place to keep motivation up? One of our attendees has just kind of noted here that 3 or 4 weeks in, morale's quite high, people start to adapt to the culture, and all of a sudden you start to get that little bit of a dip in terms of, like motivation. And then the second part of that question is what lessons have you learned so far?
Okay, so I already mentioned that we have a daily news sheet, which actually the authors are all the people, the editors and chiefs and so on, are from around the different countries that we operate out of. So it's not me, my team generating it, which is great. So, the content is what people are interested in hearing more of and sharing. I think the other thing is I put out a weekly blog. So, highlighting different meetings I may have attended, for different countries, or different things I've picked up with, and heard on kind of on the grapevine, if you like. So just to keep people up to speed about the way I'm thinking. I've done that since day one when I first joined. So, that's continuity is important. I think the other element is, making sure that we are really encouraging people to check in, with their teams, so get their teams online daily, ideally, and as I said, camera on. I think that bit's really important so people can see other people. When you're in a room on your own somewhere, it can feel a little bit lonely, even though, we're not, clearly, are we? There's a lot of us around on this call this afternoon. And then I think, really kind of listening out and paying attention to the kind of messaging that we're hearing through our managers. So my team and I meet every day online. We've done that for now 4 weeks, and so we get to pick up what's going on around the world, and we can react to that. And be highly visible and connected, I think, would be what I would say.
Yeah, I think there's something in that, and I myself, as well as some of my team members, everyone's kind of home environment's different. So whether you're house sharing with a few friends and you're all trying to fight for the table in the kitchen, or whether you are just living on your own, there's equal challenges that are faced there as well. I think what I did hear from that, though, is ensuring continuity top down between leadership and some of the folks on the floor, on the ground in different places, but also empowering those employees, which has always been a theme for all of the topics that or discussions I've seen you in, Bev, as well over the last couple of years. But it's empowering employees to ensure that they have a voice. So actually now more than ever is putting them as the chief editor of your news article, or bringing ideas to the table, hosting an event, etc. Could help them with that motivation as well. James, what about lessons learned?
Yeah, I mean, on that point you just said there, I mean, one of the great things we've seen is the way our leadership has stepped up and taken the challenge on. And I think the most important thing for us is just to give them some broad framework and some broad targets about what we can do now as a business. Certain desks have gone completely cold, but some desks are still warm, and chugging along, but ensuring that we can identify where the slow elements of the business are going to be, and focusing on those people and saying, okay, well, look, oil and gas right now is quiet, so let's go and look at retail, let's go and look at logistics, because we can see the medical at the moment, obviously. So we've tried to give them some broad framework of direction about where they can apply themselves, and I think over the next 8-12 weeks, I don't know how long this is going to last, having those people with a purpose and a direction that have been set, that we're expecting them to step up to, is great, and they have. And I think if you give those people the challenge, they'll step up to it. The worst thing you can do is sit back and say, well, if nothing's coming in, there's nothing you can do. The worst thing you can do. So think about how we can move our focus and move our perspective into new markets and diversify with the changing environment. And people have stepped up to that.
Yeah, that's excellent, and I think it gives you a different insight into the individuals that work with you as well, right? So the people that are typically front and center the whole time, but actually you might have people that are maybe quite reserved, but actually have to take the time, really kind of research, and bring those ideas to the front. Where we all work in a fast-paced environment. Sometimes it's not as easy to do that. No, that's great. Thank you. Let's kind of dip into a little bit, and we've kind of blurred the line from managing changing culture, leadership within a crisis, but like I said, there's no framework for these type of discussions. It's a good thing. What are the key skills or characteristics a leader should have at this point in time? What are you looking for?
I think, again, visibility at the moment is absolutely key. Make yourself seen and heard, and ensure that your message is getting through to the business. I mean, I think as well, don't shy away from the tough conversations right now. There are going to be, things we're all doing as businesses that aren't what we would choose to do. And shying away from that and trying to brush that under the carpet is not the best thing to do. What we've seen is, we've all had to make some tough decisions and actions recently, but putting that out there, being honest and open and giving the reasons why, you're trying to protect the bigger whole here. Again, the people that, are going to be staying with you on this journey, again, step up, because they're like, okay, I understand, I'm going to work harder to help us all get through this at the moment. So I think that for me has been key, is not shying away from the realities of the situation, and don't sugarcoat it, and people will step up and deliver for you.
Yeah, and I think that's in there, and I'm pretty certain that that's a question on the lips of all of the attendees at the wine market anyways. There is going to be some tough messages that need to be delivered. A lot of the time these messages are for the great good of the organization and for everyone as a whole. I guess it's kind of advice on how to deliver that message. So from yourself, it's kind of no sugarcoating, be transparent, and actually talk about the overarching why. Bev, when we talk about characteristics, what you're looking for in a good leader, but how that comes down to having a tough conversation, what are you looking for?
Well, first of all, I don't assume that everybody has, been in this kind of rapid change world before. So I think for us, we've been doing some leadership webinars. So I brought in 3 people that I know and trust, that I've worked with over a number of years, who are real experts in, change in all kinds of conditions, and big talent leaders. And I got them to ask them to run these leadership series for us. So helping people understand, it's okay to feel, as a leader, to feel uncertain, and to have your own doubts and so on. And at the same time, when you're in front of your team, be very clear you understand the message you're delivering. No deviation. Lack of clarity creates uncertainty and worry. So, do your homework and make sure you understand the message that you're being asked to deliver as a leader. Listen, be empathetic. At the same time, though, I think as James has said there, it's really important, tough messages, deliver them with empathy, but don't deviate from the message. I think it's important, and people on the whole value that. So and being heard, making sure that people realise that they are being listened to and that you are taking, their concerns on board, and to respond. I think so. If you have open channels for questions that come out as a result of some change program you might be delivering, make sure you go back quickly with, again, very clear answers, and then share a general version of those questions and answers out to the wider population, because it could be someone else is sitting there wondering the same thing.
Yeah, and I think there's something in there which you just mentioned there as well, is I think intrinsically everyone has had to adapt to change in some form throughout their careers, throughout their lives as well. So we know how we react to it, we know how we deal with it, and actually we also know how to coach through that and deliver messages, but also adhere to a framework. It does kind of pull out some of those core skills and core qualities that we have already. Obviously, the impact is much greater nowadays, but there is some of that core skill set sitting there across our employee base as well. So no, that's a really good point. Thank you.
I think, if you allow me, I'll just add one extra thing, which is, and again, if somebody isn't prepared well enough, to go in and deliver some difficult, perhaps, messaging, then it can be tempting to kind of disown those messages. And I think it's again about making sure that that doesn't happen. That you equip your leaders and yourself to make sure that you're owning it. That bit's really important. Your team will not thank you for turning around and saying, well, it wasn't me, it was them. Actually that's weak. And so we're looking to equip all of our leaders to be strong, courageous, and empathetic leaders. And I think those are really important characteristics right now.
But could I ask you a bit of a candid question, actually? Apologies to catch you off guard, but typically when you see vulnerability as a leader, for me, I typically share that vulnerability at my peer level and above. How do you do that when you are the CEO? Who do you share with?
My team, for sure. I think it always starts with you. So I think if you set the right tone, and I can't promise, you'd have to ask them how they feel about this, but maybe that's for another one. Yeah, but I think when you take on a leadership role, I think part of it is about setting the tone and the style of what you're looking to deliver yourself and what you're expecting from others. And so I will always start by first of all listening, because not insert my own view first, but secondly, if I've had doubts or concerns or worries myself, why wouldn't I put that on the table? Because collectively we'll be able to find a solution together. I think it's good to have robust debate with your senior team, and make sure that you leave your virtual room, joined up, but also, sharing where your own concerns and worries are. I think that's a strength, a real strength.
Yeah, sorry, James, I don't feel like we're isolating you for a moment, but we'll get to you. We'll have a candid question in a moment. One of the books that I've read previously a couple of years ago was The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. That was always quite a unique perspective. So it's establishing your number one team. So typically that's your leadership group, or if you're a sales a team leader on the floor, that'd be your group there. But without dysfunction, you can't really have a good debate. You can't have positive conflict to understand who's bringing what to the table, why do they care about it, what does it mean, and therefore actually align on the results to get you through that at the end. So it sounds odd that we're encouraging dysfunction and conflict, but as long as it's in the right way, that's kind of a good to drive yourselves forward as well.
Well, I think if you don't address it in that room, it will spill out into rooms you don't want it to. So
the rooms
deal
you're
with
not in.
it. Correct. Exactly. I've always believed that you've got to be able to be in a place where you trust your leaders at any level to deliver the message, whether you're there or not, and to own that message. And I think if you can't, then you need to go back to having that conversation and equip people to be able to do it.
Yeah. So James, multiple functions roll up to you. That must be a challenge in itself when you're trying to deliver, in effect, a unified message and show solidarity, but actually the impact differs for each department. So how are you managing that?
Well, the interesting thing at the moment is some of those departments that, you know, perhaps always on the back of the pile or not in the spotlight have been thrown into the spotlight over the last, you know, 3 or 4 weeks. You know, IT has become the most critical function in the business, almost after sales. And our guys have stepped up to the challenge immensely. Again, thank goodness for a cloud-based strategy. But you know, these guys are now working strange hours to make sure we've got, you know, 24-hour coverage. Everyone is now, you know, logging in. They can't walk over to the desk and ask for support anymore. So, you know, the support questions and queries are coming in thick and fast, but the systems have held up. Remote working is working for us. So that's very interesting, obviously. So that's an area now of, you know, we're really protecting that overhead base because it's become so critical. And the other one is probably learning and development, our training division. Those guys have stepped up brilliantly. They're ploughing out new content. One of the best things I've seen, and I would recommend everyone get hold of something, you know, on video selling. If you haven't done that with your sales teams before, we put a lot of content out recently about how you can have, you know, productive sales meeting like this, you know, face to face but over video. That's gone down a storm. And again, changing your market focus. So where these people's desks have suddenly gone very cold, and they probably will stay cold for a good few months, arming them with strategies and tools to go out and find new customers and new clients in some of these markets that we're not particularly well known in, but we know are going to be very, very busy, and we can probably make an impact in. So it's been interesting to see how, you know, those departments have suddenly become front and center in the organization, whereas before, you know, more in the back, more in the shadows, making things work, but very critical at the moment.
Okay, I want to come back to the client part as well. You mentioned around like new strategies to be able to, you know, sell to clients, get people on board. We'll come back to that in a moment. A big question that's coming up across the attendee is technologies that we're utilizing. So we've mentioned Zoom, we're on GoToMeeting, we've used various others. There any other kind of formats or technologies that you would recommend? And then I'll parlay that into another question around big group company meetings. Do you do big sessions? Is it sending a video around? Like, what would you recommend? From Bullhorn's perspective, we always have a monthly town CEO. Everyone's on video, which can be. But yeah, what about yourselves? Any technology? And what about the whole company?
I mean, we're completely on the Microsoft. We're on an E5 license package, Office 365, and we're on Dynamics in the back office. So with Bullhorn as well, you know, all of our core systems are in the cloud and accessible from where you are today, which is great. Video-wise, again, Teams is great because people can create their own little worlds in Teams and have their own channels and their own project groups, etc., and they can work with that. We don't broadcast live to all of our employees globally just because of time. You know, we are from, you know, Australia to, you know, San Francisco, so you can't ever get everyone on the same time. So again, coming back to what I said earlier, we push out videos pre-recorded for people to consume when they're awake in their work hours. So we certainly, you know, do a lot of that now, more so than ever.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we'll use videos. Obviously, Teams I've mentioned. We'll use GoToMeeting and Zoom for different purposes as well. 2 weeks ago, ran a town hall twice to get the different time zones for our business in place. So I think that bit's important. And then virtual whiteboarding tools. So in our Nashtec business and Crimson business, which are, you know, both solutions hubs, then, you know, we need to be able to kind of work on design and so on. So I think the virtual whiteboarding really is helping enormously, especially where we're involving, you know, our clients in design work.
Okay. I think to kind of bring this section to a little bit of a close, what's the sense right now? Is it longer term vision and the strategy we walked into 2020 with on point, or is it more focused on today? What's happening today?
I think leaders have to do both. Leaders have to do both. You always have to look at the here and now and where you're heading. So I don't think that's changed. I think perhaps what is changing though is this new world is providing us new opportunities. So that means perhaps what we might have been heading down a path of, in the medium term, actually we might accelerate it when we come out the other side of this now, or adjust it because new things have come up.
Yeah, I think the same here. Technology obviously is a critical path, and that's going to go way up the priority list for us on the other side of this. But also, strange thing, but the whole fear of working from home and flexible working, I think this crisis has put that to the front, and there is a stigma. Yeah, but I still think there's a stigma in recruitment about, you can't have your recruiters working from home. They're not going to work. They're going to go to the pub. We're not seeing that, and it's certainly got me thinking about: do we need all these offices? Do we need all this estate on the other side of this? And perhaps getting a bit more, bringing that forward in the agenda is certainly something I'm going to be pushing.
Well, that's the thing, right? Everyone's so used to being touchy-feely, and unless you're at your desk at 8 or 9 o'clock, or it depends on how liberal you are as a recruitment leader, then you're not there, and therefore I'm saying that you are not working factor. So an interesting point here as well is what sort of have you softened KPIs or the metrics that you used to measure success or define productivity by, or have you added? What are we kind of looking at? I say we was closing down that subject, but actually I'm going to keep it open for a minute.
We're not softening them, but we obviously are conscious where some people are going to face a complete wall of nothingness. So again, coming back to repurposing those people and giving them new objectives and new KPIs that aren't necessarily going to be fills and and that kind of stuff. It's going to be lead generation and bringing in new opportunities. So they're just as tough, perhaps even tougher. New business is hard, but we're certainly not softening them. We're looking at a bit of commission, perhaps. We might look at changing some of the commission, having earlier draws and lower draws and things like that, just to help get people through the next 3 months. But the core KPIs still work where there are busy desks up for us. Again, because we're on the cloud, all the information is there. You can see productivity, you can see who's working, who's not. And I say, thankfully, everyone's continuing to work pretty much as they were, even not in the office. I don't know if it's the same for you.
You still with us, Beth? Oh, we might have lost Beth for a moment. James, just to follow up on that question then. So you mentioned that, is it an active discussion?
I think not much different.
No, I think
yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got you now. Oh, now you're gone.
I think we've got some lag on the network.
Yeah. So while I've got you, James, so is it an active discussion at a board level just now then around what do you think the mixture between office-based work, remote working, is there going to be agile working?
Better now.
What's kind of the split, do you think?
I think I think this is now front and center. I think again, we've been guilty of being quite old school in some areas of the business on that. And I think what we're seeing now is people can be just as productive and just as effective. And I think it opens up opportunities that we probably overlooked in the past. Good people, not necessarily based near an office. We've probably been put off hiring them. People who've left to, move with their partners elsewhere. We probably could have retained, in a working from home, flexible working environment. So I see it as a real upside and a real opportunity to, retain good people that you don't want to lose, but maybe moving somewhere else for other family, personal related circumstances. So it's front and center, and I say it's going to be something. Once the dust settles on this bit a little bit, I think we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at our offices, and looking at each office, really through a lens and saying, do we need that real estate? Do we need that office there? In our world, most of our meetings are on the client premises. There aren't too many clients these days that come to our offices and have meetings on our premises. So, it's something to really, really think about. You'll always need sales offices, but do we need as much office space for some of the back office functions and some of our personnel that aren't front facing all the time?
Well, yeah, you've even seen the increase in or the volume of jobs and location is remote, even on LinkedIn over the last kind of 2 or 3 weeks. I know the job boards are slowly kind of catching up, just because obviously a lot of it's predominantly around radius, etc. But yeah, that's also interesting in itself, is that defining criteria being made redundant where someone's
Yeah,
located, and it's more
yeah.
around the talent. Like you're
Well,
saying as well.
we've had to do that. We've had to onboard people over the last 3 weeks, remotely, which has been a new experience, but it's worked. So, again, we've got systems that they can log into, training, learning management system, etc. So it's worked. But yeah, that's been new. Onboarding people remotely is something we've had to learn. And
Yeah.
again, coming back to what Bev was saying earlier, it's about that, especially with those new starters in such a strange environment, connecting with them daily, making sure they're okay, not left alone, because they probably don't want to bother people, but making sure you can bother me, and I want you to, let me know if you need help.
You're so used to having the person next to you that you can ask, how do you do this?
Exactly.
55% of your first 2 weeks are how-to questions. Let's get it right. So you need to figure out who the answer to that is going to be.
Exactly.
So are you back with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you.
No worries. We were talking about is it an active discussion at a board level in terms of remote working being a mainstay moving forward? Yeah, just kind of keen to get your thoughts on that.
Yes, I mean, I could hear you guys clearly, so I completely agree. I think it's really thrown open wide, the way that where we find our talent as well. So, everybody naturally assumes, or people naturally assume, you need to have them in a set location. Well, don't bring people to the office now, bring the work to the people and where the talent is. So I think that's a very different slant on it. We did our induction fully online, fully virtual, at the beginning of last week, and it was brilliant. And whilst it's always great to be in person with people, it was very high energy, lots of I think probably even more interactive because of the way it was set up. And yes, I mean, offices, I think they have a purpose, for a social purpose, for actually getting around the table perhaps with clients from time to time. But does it have to be fixed? I don't know. I'm not convinced anymore. I think this has really given us an opportunity to think about things differently. It's got to work for our people. I think that's important. So we have to listen hard. What did they value from this experience, and what didn't they want to keep doing? I think we need to be in listening mode very quickly when we get back into whatever the new version of the world is.
Yeah, and I think there's something in that as well. If you, I guess, if we asked all recruitment leaders how much money they spent each year on just travel and expense, for instance, that the millions of pounds that they could put back into their L&D department. I think that interesting point. The amount of companies I speak to that don't even have an L&D department or a trainer in-house, but spend hundreds of thousands of pounds each year on sending people here, there, and everywhere. Actually, we could reinvest that into our employees to ensure that they're developing at the same time, because the expectations on our employees only increases, the expectations from our clients on our employees to deliver only increases as well. We'll kind of move into the opportunity within the disruption, and I think just like one kind of summarizing point from what we just spoke about there. If you think about all of the data that we saw in certain sectors at the beginning of this year where there was a talent shortage, I'm keen to understand, and this isn't necessarily a question, more of a statement, I'm keen to understand the reporting of that. Was that reporting based on individuals with that skill set, or is it a little bit about location as well? Because actually, we take that opportunity going to the new world post this kind of crisis. If location goes out the window, maybe we can actually find some good talent out there, immediately impact our revenue as well, and a good climate. So, James, I said I would come back to you around this part. The opportunity within the disruption. You mentioned clients. You mentioned teaching your people new ways to sell via video, new ways to interact with your clients. What are you doing specifically with your client to help create opportunity?
Well, a lot of our clients are, in the same boat we are, facing crisis, and I think you have to take a supportive educational stance at this time with your clients, and we have been looking at that, with them as strategic partners about how they can save money. and we're not going to necessarily do that just by cutting our margins or cutting our gross profit line for them. It has to be a symbiotic relationship with many of our clients. It's how can we consolidate their supply chains? How can we step in and give us greater volume, and we can give you better price? So we're doing a lot of that at the moment, talking to our clients about how they can use us more. Our service offerings cover more than just recruitment, so it's also trying to bring in some of our other service lines to see, what are you spending on global mobility at the moment? What are you spending on payroll in that country at the moment? Because we might be able to come in and offer that at a cheaper rate. So it's really trying to get all your people thinking about not just recruitment sales, our complete suite of services sales, and thinking about where we can create value for our clients with our wider portfolio of services. And that's working, and we've got our clients looking at their supply chains, thinking, actually, I've been using those guys for 20 years. I've never actually, had a price conversation with them for the last whatever. So, that's working for us. So it's not just about recruitment, it's about what other services we can sell and create that value.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in challenging the status quo. So things have been done this way because we've always done it, or we have this relationship because this individual knew them 25 years ago, etc. So big fan of challenging the status quo. In fact, that is one of the scorecard metrics that we measure our employees on as well. It's not just accepting that this is it. We're encouraging curiosity. We're encouraging new ways of problem solving, etc. So that's cool. How about yourself, Bev? As a team, have you kind of coached them into ways to interact with the clients? Have they asked for anything?
I think it's a couple of things. So firstly, I'm very conscious, as are all of our people, that the way you treat your clients now, perhaps when some of them are experiencing some difficulties, will either stand you in good stead or you'll lose them forever. So I think really listening and working out how you can support them through their tough moments, I think will pay back enormously later. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, where people perhaps are thinking, taking on a permanent headcount right now might be a risk, but an interim still might work. So, actually being more flexible with the kind of solutions we're offering our clients. And then thirdly, some value add. So James talked about that a few times this afternoon. I think that bit's really important. So, we're bringing some new ideas to the table, a bit like you are here today. Actually, Sean, kind of small, intimate gatherings where we're kind of, sharing thoughts and ideas, putting solutions on the table to generate debate and new thinking. That's important. I think, and fourthly, just to say, as a solutions business as well, we're finding a lot of companies now are not finding it that attractive to be managing their own IT, when they are so reliant on it. And so offshoring opportunities are really coming up in abundance.
Okay, interesting. Is there any, obviously I don't want to go too granular, James, obviously it's USP, etc., but any other opportunities that you're kind of seeing or you can foresee coming from this?
Well, obviously, I guess the big opportunity for everyone is the bounce back, and it's going to happen, and it's going to be big. I think most people, see that when the world is released from its cage, there's going to be lots of opportunity to bounce back. So for us, it's about ensuring what we do now is not going to be overly detrimental to being able to support our clients when they resurge. So it's critical right now to manage your business on a quite weekly, daily basis to ensure that you are not overcutting, not making too many strides in certain areas that are going to be hard to rebuild when the markets return. So we're putting in weekly metrics, contractor headcount, billings, etc. We know what stages of the business, where we might have to pull levers and turn knobs to do things, or where what we're prepared to suck up as a business to ensure that we protect the core so we can rebound with the market. So that for me is critical. It's that that financial forecasting, your metrics, what do you need to do to survive and get through it without overly damaging yourselves is critical right now.
So do we have a resounding belief that the snapback's going to be great? Is that across Bev, yourself, and me?
I'm not going to speak for Bev. I believe it.
Looking for some unison.
Yeah, I do. We're a tech recruitment and solutions business. Technology is at the heart of everything. So for sure, I think it will come back strongly.
So I've done a lot of research on this personally. Actually, it's an interesting kind of historical lesson. So Harvard Business Review done it as well, and what they've done is they've seen that from past recessions, the actual snapback piece, it's a faster growth rate than what it was when you was going into it during a buoyant market. So whilst you sustain that momentary dip in terms of the J curve, the snapback is much more accelerated. So I guess to the question around what we see now versus previous recessions, equally, James, your experience in sector recessions as well, right? Oil over the last twice in 5 years. What are you seeing now that's different, and aside from the fact that obviously this was not foreseen?
Well, I think the biggest difference on the COVID recession, if you want to call it that, whatever name it will be given in the future, will be the knowing the snapbacks coming. Whereas oil recessions that we go through and oil dips and troughs that they grow back for over a couple of years, they grow back to their peak. The difference for us is holding our cost base as firmly as we can with the best people we can, because the snap is going to be so much stronger than a typical oil recession where everything stops, projects stop, and it takes a while for those projects to ramp back up again. And I think that's the big difference for us, is that we don't want to treat this like we would a previous oil downturn. We're treating this very separately. And oil is going through a bit of a crisis at the moment, so we're almost having to have two different stages of planning right now in our business. Because we've got many customers who want to return back as soon as they can. They've got facilities and assets to run, and they need people to do that. So it's almost having two tranches of what's oil projects that are probably going to take a few years to recover, and what's COVID related holdbacks that will bounce back strongly. So we're going that granular at the moment, trying to go client by client, project by project. What are they looking like they'll do in the next couple of years? Is it going to be a quick snap, or is it going to be a couple of years for them to ramp back up again? It's very different.
Yeah, and that must be quite odd as well. So you're looking at two things in parallel, but they kind of are intertwined, but equally at the same time have different impact associated to them. Yeah. What about yourself, Bev? So we're talking about similarities, or see this new or different from now, or from previous recessions, bear markets.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, in previous recessions, if I think back 2008, 2009, let's use that one. I think, clearly it was brutal on some organizations, some markets. It really was. There's a huge loss of jobs in that process, with some organizations supporting people as they exited, others not. We can all picture everything that was in the press and on news channels around the world as that was going on, and it felt kind of, I don't know where disjointed would be wrong, but what's different, it seems, in this is that everybody's in it together. Everybody is impacted in one way or the other. And actually, in many ways, it's bringing people together rather than driving them apart. And I think the first one drove people apart. This is not, it's unifying. So I think we will learn a lot more from this about, us as social people, as how organizations can really work versus the way that we perhaps used to work beforehand, and challenge ourselves, just as James has been saying and as we've been talking about here this afternoon. The way that we will operate our businesses will almost certainly be different. And the thing is, I think people are much more human in this, so there's a heck of a lot more support than perhaps. So it probably felt more isolationist, even though we are isolated in our own homes. It feels more together. Yeah,
there's something in that. A lot of people will say that they've got that kind of skill to be able to kind of self-motivate. You think about most of the CVs that we've ever read that come across our desk. Hardworking, driven individual, like self-starter. Actually, it's putting that to the test a little bit, but it's the qualities that kind of shine through from that as well. Is in the humility that I'm seeing is great, and like you say, it's that sense of all in this together and camaraderie it's been great. Just getting people together to have these sort of dialogues has been really cool as well. So thank you very much.
On the same topic, obviously, prior recessions, we didn't have the level of support from government that we're probably getting now. Obviously the UK is doing tremendous amounts, whatever it can. US, and we work in quite a few jurisdictions, and everyone's following suit. Australia, Singapore, Korea, wherever it is. So I think as business leaders, that gives us an immense amount of confidence as well. That again, we're all in it together, and we're going to get some assistance to get through this. So that's been it's been great to see that happen, not just in the UK but all over the world.
I think it's also helped give confidence to the people, right? It's not just the businesses, it's the people. That they have a bit more confidence that the businesses they work for, the businesses they potentially will work for, are being looked after and do have the support as well. So they have a little bit more confidence in their own personal lives within their four walls that they will be able to provide for their family moving forward as well. So I know it is tough times and we have people being furloughed, etc. But I think you're right. That's the biggest kind of difference that I've seen as well, is the unilateral kind of solidarity, but equally the support from the government as well. Question for you. So we're all quite bullish. We're all have belief that there is going to be a snapback, a bounce back, however you want to put that phrase. What sort of, and we've got proof points for that as well, previous months. What sort of courageous decisions, what sort of bullish decisions are you going to make to ensure that you are best placed to do that? James?
Oh, it's probably, again, not overreacting and holding as close to that line of survivability as you can, so you're as best prepared and best ready and best resourced to snap back. So I think you do have to treat this one differently and be a bit braver. And again, the financial support helps that. Some of the tax deferrals for us as a business are enormous, that we can forget about that. Our liquidity is going to be okay for a period of time because some of these measures have been put in place. So for us, it's being brave enough to take a hit and be prepared to bounce back. So that's probably the most bullish thing we're going to do as a business is not just try and, this year is going to be this year, right? I think everyone's looking at that. It's going to be what it is. We've got to look to next year, how best can we keep our shape and our culture and positive thinking now, so we can bounce back. That's the bullish element to what we're thinking about now at the moment. We're writing this year off. It's the forgotten year.
Oh yeah, I think everyone is as well, and for all the CEOs out there, and for everyone just needs to know, all time has been revised. It's fine.
I hate the notion of giving, even though I completely agree with what you're saying. I hate the notion of giving up on a year, given we're only in whatever the date is today, 7th of April. So I kind of like to think there's lots to play for here yet. And I think the other thing I'm really thinking, on top of what James has said, which I completely agree with all of that, I think there is the notion of being ever more focused. So if you look back to, I don't know, maybe a month, 2 months ago, how many projects did you have on the go, and how many have you got now? And are they the right ones? So for me, I think I'm encouraging everyone to think about the time that we're spending. Are we spending it on the right things? Are we spending it on the things that will actually make a difference, or the things that we just have an interest in and they should work but we don't know? So being a bit more brutal with our decision making and ourselves, so that we can be ready and fit to come out the other side.
That's a great shout. If you use this as an opportunity to really focus on your capacity management as well, but actually attributing what that percent of time is being attributed to, I think that's a really, really good point. Because equally, that's what people can find themselves doing. Like they're stuck in their house. They could just be doing work for work's sake, but actually, what's the output of that? Is it beneficial? So that's kind of one measurement, and that's something that we've been looking at as well, we're uniquely placed where we have all 10,000 of our customers in the cloud to see some of the key metrics. So we're showing from February 8th, I think it was, that week, jobs that were out there, time cards that were processed, etc. And then what does that trend look like on a week-by-week basis? Am I right in assuming there then, Bev, look at the key performance indicators within your business that define success, what they were at that point, measure those as your ability to predict, not necessarily when the bounce back will happen, but predict what good looks like, and then attribute your time spent in those areas as an organization.
Yes,
Awesome.
that's right.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
And it's key. I mean, it's key for your guys to, your frontline guys to be trying to get as much client intelligence and client information as possible through this. Again, to help shape those decisions, because if you've got good partnerships and got good clients, they want to work with you because they want you to respond with them, hopefully, in the bounce back. So, it's critical to keep your finger on the pulse with the client so you can model that through and know where your low point is and what you're going to have to deal with at that low point.
Yeah. No, that's great, and we've managed to actually cover a lot of the questions from the audience as well, which is brilliant, as well as a lot of the questions that were submitted as part of the registration. So as we're coming towards the top of the hour, I don't know if you both had a closing statement or a message to the attendees before we wrap this up.
Over communicate. I'll say it again. If that's the one thing I'd share is video is a godsend, and do over communicate and be visible to your people in this time. They're looking for that direction and those faces, familiar faces that are in their bedrooms or working from home. So that would be my message.
Thanks, James.
Completely agree with that, and I would also add, I think don't panic, because when you're sitting on your own, actually it's kind of wise just to kind of take a step back before making a decision. If I can, I'll give myself overnight and come back the next morning, because you see things more clearly. That's really important during this time when you feel like sometimes you have to act fast. Sometimes that's the wrong thing to do. So take a pause first.
We're all afforded a little bit more time nowadays anyway. Well, with that, I would like to thank you very much for joining us today. I think this has been a great example of the community spirit that we have and we see and continue to see develop in the recruitment market. I hope that you would be open to joining us again. We'll get the feedback from the attendees to talk about various other topics they'd like to see us present here as well. But I think the overarching message is that we do see positivity at the back end of it. The snapback, if you put yourself in the right position to capitalize on, will be beneficial. Communicate with your employees, empower them, and make sure that you listen to every voice that's out there as well. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to everyone that's joined. There will be a bit of a write-up, which we'll work with the panelists on. There will be a survey that's coming around. It's a great opportunity to submit topics, questions, anything you'd like to hear us talk about. And there will be a box in there as well to see if you'd be interested in joining a follow-up session, be it a roundtable or another panel discussion like this. Please raise your hand. I'm sure that everyone in the market would like to see fellow peers having this discussion. So with that, I'll say goodbye. Thank you very much and stay safe.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Bev. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye. Thank you.